What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and today we are going over some OCG card reveals from the last few days, and I want to talk about these because we have some pretty cool cards. This first one has kind of been made fun of a lot. It's pretty much a joke, but it is pretty darn good with one very specific Link monster that we'll talk about in a few moments. We also have a brand new support card for a very interesting set of cards that have been released over the years, and it's a series of cards that I never really thought would get a card that really ties them all together, so that's pretty cool to see. I do want to mention before we start today's video that yesterday I uploaded episode 2 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Bulk Challenge, and this time I dueled against none other than Team Samurai X1. That video is admittedly not doing very great, which is pretty disappointing because it did take forever to film and edit and upload and all of that stuff, and it seems like the people that are watching it really do enjoy it, so I want to keep doing that series, but at this point I'm not sure how realistic that is just because of how much goes into those bulk challenge episodes. So if you guys missed that one, which I think most people missed it, make sure to check it out after watching today's video. I will link it at the end of today's discussion. I really think those bulk challenge videos are a ton of fun, and I do have more planned, but at this point I'm starting to realize that maybe it didn't have the widespread appeal that I hoped it would. That's enough whining from old Dzeeff here. Let's take a look at these new cards. We have Pixie, a level 1 Wind Fairy Tuner monster that says, once per turn, quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls that is in this card's column. Move this card you control to another of your main monster zones, and if you do, move that target to your opponent's main monster zone that is in this card's current column, then place one burning counter on that opponent's monster. Monsters lose 200 attack and defense times the number of burning counters on them. Okay, so this card might look pretty bad, and like I said, a lot of people think this card is a complete joke, but there is one important card, Relinquished Anima, that does work quite well with Pixie. Now, I'm not saying that's a broken interaction, but basically you can take whatever monster you want as long as you have this card and one copy of Relinquished Anima in your extra deck, and that might be relevant at some point. I know it seems ridiculous. Who would ever play this one random level 1 monster in their deck just for Relinquished Anima? But I have seen crazier things happen. You never really know with Yu-Gi-Oh! What decks in the future might look like. Maybe a deck has no normal summons, and maybe Relinquished Anima is really good in that format. That might be a situation where this card could be playable. Now, is that ever going to happen? Probably not. It does seem a bit unrealistic, but I think the idea is pretty cool. With Relinquished Anima in the past, the idea was that you were hoping your opponent would accidentally place a card into a column that was below the extra monster zones so that you could summon the Relinquished Anima and then take it. But with this card, you can move whatever monster you want to that zone. Like I said though, that's probably not super realistic, but I think it is worth mentioning because the card is slightly better than people are giving it credit for. Now, here's a card that gets me very excited. So over the years, we've gotten several mystical beasts of the forest monsters, and we've gotten one mystical spirit of the forest monster, but now we have a new card that can search all of them, and it really makes me wonder if Konami is going to print even more cards for this archetype. So this one, which I cannot pronounce at all, is a new mystical beast of the forest. I believe it is a giant bear of some sort, and it is a level 7 Earth Beast effect monster with 1000 attack and 2600 defense. It has 2 different effects. You can only use each of them once per turn each. They are hard once per turns. The first effect says, if this card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can target up to 2 other monsters with different types from each other, beast, beast warrior, winged beast, insect, and plant, in your graveyard. Shuffle them into the deck, and if you do, special summon this card. That's not the most amazing effect on paper, but let's take a look at the second effect. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Mystical Beast of the Forest or Mystical Spirit of the Forest monster from your deck to your hand, except this card. That's where it gets pretty good. So you probably would not want to go out of your way to play discarding cards just to combo with this card, but if you are already playing Beast, Beast Warrior, Winged Beast, Insect, or Plant monsters, and they already have discard effects, this seems like a natural inclusion. Now, before we talk about what decks this card could go into, I want to go through all of the search targets that it can add right to your hand. So you have those two Mystical Beast of the Forest level 2 beast monsters that have seen play over the years in rogue decks, primarily decks like Baby Raccoon or Melfi. Those are two of the better targets for this card's effect. You also have Uniflora, or is it Uniflora? I have no idea, but you have that unicorn beast monster that has been the source of some combos in the past. It's never seen a ton of competitive play, but it does have a good effect. That is yet another card that you could add with this one. You also have the giant, I believe it is Alpaca, and that one isn't super great. Would you search that one? Probably not, unless there is more support that I don't know about yet. But at this point, I don't think that card is really worth considering, even though you can now search it. Finally, we have the only Mystical Spirit of the Forest card, and it's pretty trash, honestly. It has an ability that deals with effect damage, but that one is not that relevant. It is probably the worst of all of them. What gets me excited though is that I think that this implies we will get more cards in this archetype, and if we get even like one more good card to search with this thing, suddenly it becomes a lot better, because right now I think the best target hands down is that Deer Mystical Beast of the Forest. That one is already played in Melfi, and it even has a discarding effect which will trigger this card's effect in the graveyard, and then you could add another copy to your hand, or you could search the little bunny Mystical Beast of the Forest. I think that that would be probably the best way to play this card. I also think though that you could consider playing this card in a Tri-Brigade deck. There are currently two level 2 Beast Tri-Brigade monsters, one of which does have a discarding effect which would trigger this effect, and then you could play that Deer in that deck as a form of recovery. I think a lot of people are not considering this card being very good because what it can search right now might not be the best set of monsters. You only really have like one super playable one, the Deer card, and then the little bunny, which is good in Melfi. But I think that this card has a ton of potential, and like I said, if we even get one more good search target, this thing could be a big deal. I personally am excited for it. I've always loved those Mystical Beast monsters, and I think we do have a number of beast support cards right now in the format, like the Tri-Brigades, so I think that this card could be a part of a cool rogue deck in the future. We'll just have to wait and see, because Dawn of Majesty is pretty far out for TCG players, so who really knows how many other beast support cards we'll have by that point. This card could be a pretty decent inclusion in a variety of rogue strategies. Now you do have to play not just beast monsters, you have to have at least one other of those types, but I think that is pretty manageable considering that you can play like another archetype that maybe has those. You could play an extra deck monster that is one of those. Your deck doesn't have to have like 50% of one of those types and 50% of the other one. You just have to make sure that you have access to the other type in some way, shape, or form. Finally, we have this new generic rank 6 monster that a lot of people are talking about already. It is the Lark Dragon. Let's take a look at what it does. This is a rank 6 Wind Worm Exceeds effect monster with 2700 attack and 1300 defense. It takes any 2 level 6 monsters to make here, so it is completely generic, and it says cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while a monster special summoned from the graveyard other than this card is face up on the field. So it gives itself this protection effect as long as you have another monster that was special summoned from the graveyard. So that is pretty easy to do. There are plenty of ways to special summon monsters from your graveyard, and as long as you have one of those on the field, this card is going to be pretty difficult to get rid of. Once per turn during the standby phase, you can attach one material from this card, then target one level 5 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Notably, this is during either standby phase, not just your own, which means if you summon this card on turn 1, you will get that revival effect on your opponent's standby phase, which is great. So you'll pretty much always revive at least one monster with this card, and that special summon is pretty good. So not only do you get incremental advantage with this effect over time, but also by special summoning a monster from your graveyard during that standby phase, you are instantly protecting the card with that first ability, because now you control a monster that was special summoned from the graveyard. So I like this card a lot, and I think it could be a good addition to any deck that plays rank 6 monsters. Of course, the biggest downside here is that you can't revive a level 6 or lower monster, so you have to be playing other cards besides level 6 monsters. Now, there are some cool cards that you can revive with this on your opponent's turn. Maybe you used a card earlier on in your combo to make a board, and now you can bring it back to reuse its effect. Maybe you trigger like an on-summon effect by reviving a monster that has a search ability when you normal or special summon it. There are plenty of ways to use this card, and because Konami made it completely generic, a lot of different decks can try it out, which I really enjoy. I'm not sure exactly right now what deck specifically will play this, but it does seem like a card that a lot of people will want to use just because of how easy it is to summon and how good the effect is. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and make sure to check out episode 2 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Bulk Challenge. I'll make sure to link it at the end of today's discussion. I'll see you later. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.